The crystal forests of Xylos hummed with a strange, discordant melody. For millennia, the crystalline structures had resonated with the peaceful songs of the Cthar, their thin bodies reflecting the light that pulsed from within the translucent formations. But today, the harmony was broken. Today, the crystals vibrated with fear. Elder Lyra stood at the edge of vast crystal clearing, her delicate crystalline skin pulsing with faint blue light, a sign of distress among her kind. Above, through Xylos's thin atmosphere, the dark silhouettes of Vorn warships blotted out the stars like malevolent shadows. The occasional flash of weapons fire illuminated their chitinous, segmented hulls. "They've begun the final phase," whispered Valix, her aide, his crystalline form dimming with each word. "The settlements in the western groves have already fallen." Lyra's gaze remained fixed on the sky. "And the Council? The Federation? The Trade Alliance?" Her voice resonated faintly with the crystal formations around them, creating harmonic echoes that faded too quickly. "Silence," Valix replied. "The Novarian Consortium cited trade agreements with the Vorn. The Centauri Federation invoked neutrality protocols. The Galactic Council," his voice faltered, "they've officially declared this an internal Vorn matter with no jurisdiction for intervention." A distant explosion rocked the crystal forest, sending vibrations through the ground. Crystal fragments rained down around them, each piece containing centuries of Cthar knowledge and art, their history literally shattering before their eyes. Lyra's translucent hand closed around an amplification crystal, their last functioning one. The ancient communication device had been sending distress signals across known space for days. Only automated responses and diplomatic rejections had returned. "Then we are alone," she said, her voice creating a mournful resonance in the crystals around them. Another explosion, closer this time. The Vorn ground forces would be here within hours. Their low-frequency sonic weapons were specifically calibrated to shatter crystal, both the forests and the Cthar themselves. It was not merely an invasion. It was extinction. "Yes, Elder," Valix confirmed, his form dimming further. "We are alone." But they weren't. Deep in the dead asteroid belt of a forgotten star system, a facility existed that appeared on no official Earth maps. Deep Anchor Station floated silently among the space debris, its external lights dimmed to near invisibility, its detection systems passive rather than active. Within the strategically buried command center, Admiral Eva Rostova stood motionless before a massive tactical display. The holographic projection showed Xylos in real time, courtesy of long-range stealth probes. Red markers indicated Vorn positions. Blue indicators showed the rapidly diminishing Cthar settlements. Rostova was an older woman with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her weathered face betrayed little emotion, but her eyes, sharp and calculating, never left the display. "They begun final phase operations," reported Commander Jahan, her tactical officer. "The Vorn are calling it the Void Protocol. Complete eradication of all Cthar life forms and crystalline structures." Rostova's expression didn't change, but her hand moved unconsciously to her pocket, where a small crystal shard rested, a memento from her parents. 50 years ago, during the brutal Corsair War, her parents had been among a group of Earth refugees hunted across 3 star systems. When their damaged ship limped to Xylos, it was the Cthar who had hidden them in their crystal caves. The Cthar who had shared their meager resources. The Cthar who had risked Vorn retribution to shelter humans they had never met before. "And the Council's position?" she asked, though she knew the answer. "Official designation as a Vorn internal matter as of 20 minutes ago," Jahan replied, disgust evident despite her professional tone. "They've effectively sanctioned the genocide." Rostova nodded once. The Equinox Treaty, signed after the Corsair War, explicitly prohibited Earth military operations beyond designated sectors. Violation meant potential sanctions, embargoes, even military action from the larger galactic powers. But Rostova remembered her mother's stories. She remembered the delicate Kthar elder who had guided her parents through crystal caverns while Vorn ships searched overhead. She remembered how that same elder had given her parents a small resonance crystal, the very one in her pocket, as a token of shared understanding. "Initiate Chimera Protocol," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Commander Jahan looked up sharply. "Admiral, once activated, I'm aware of the consequences, Commander." Rostova's voice remained level. "The authorization codes are Delta 7 Echo 9 Chimera. Full activation, immediate deployment." Jahan hesitated only a moment before entering the sequence into her console. Throughout Deep Anchor, silent alarms began to flash. In secure compartments, sleeping systems awakened. Rostova looked down at the small crystal in her palm, watching how it caught the light. "They thought we would forget," she murmured, almost to herself. "That's the one thing about humans the galaxy consistently underestimates." "What's that, Admiral?" asked Jahan. Rostova closed her fist around the crystal. "Our memory." In a hidden training facility on Europa, Jovian system, Major Kai Tanaka was observing his Revenant Alpha team in their final zero-gravity combat drill. Through the reinforced viewing port, he watched as 6 black-armored figures moved in perfect coordination, disabling combat drones with ruthless efficiency. Tanaka himself was a study in control power, medium height, compact build, with the coiled readiness of a predator. His features were sharp, weathered by both time and experience, his close-cropped hair showing streaks of gray at the temples. A long scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, a souvenir from an operation nobody officially acknowledged. The Revenant program existed in the shadows between official military branches. Its operatives were hand-selected, extensively modified, and trained for operations that would never appear in any record. They were Earth's silent protectors, or its ghosts of vengeance, depending on perspective. As the team completed their exercise, Tanaka's neural implant pinged with an incoming priority signal. The data packet contained a single word that caused his heart rate to spike momentarily before his biometric regulators compensated. Chimera. With the activation code came coordinates. Xylos. Tanaka closed his eyes briefly. In his mind, he could still see the crystalline caverns where he had hidden as a child. He could hear the gentle, resonating tones of the Kthar who had sheltered his family. He could feel the small resonance crystal that an elder named Lyra had pressed into his small hand before they departed. A crystal he still carried, embedded now in his combat knife hilt. "Team, deploy to Hangar Bay," he ordered through the comm system. "Priority mission activation. Full loadout. We drop in 30 minutes." The black-armored figures immediately ceased their exercise, moving toward the exit with the same efficiency they had shown in combat. Tanaka's second-in-command, Lieutenant Reza, approached as he entered the equipment room. "Sir?" she questioned simply. "Chimera," he replied, reaching for his own armor. "Xylos." Recognition flashed in Reza's eyes. Like all revenants, she knew the significance. Each of them had been specifically selected for this potential mission. Each had some connection to the 50-year-old debt that Earth's shadow forces had never forgotten. "Time to pay back old debts," she said quietly. Tanaka nodded, checking his combat knife, the crystal in its hilt glowing faintly. "Time to repay old kindnesses," he corrected. Throughout the outer reaches of Earth's secret defensive network, similar scenes played out. Nyx-class stealth cruisers, sleek angular vessels covered in sensor-absorbing materials, powered up from dormant states. Weapon systems were checked in silence. Navigation plots were calculated with obsessive precision. The Chimera Protocol had been designed for one purpose: a completely deniable military operation conducted in total communication blackout. No flux, no identification, no warning, and most importantly, no mercy. On the lead Nyx-class vessel, the Erebus, Captain Mei Lin watched her crew prepare with quiet pride. The ship's stealth systems were already engaged, making them virtually invisible to standard detection methods. Their weapons, primarily kinetic kill vehicles and targeted EMP devices, would leave minimal evidence of their origin. "Transition to FTL in 60 seconds, reported her navigator. Emergence coordinates set for the dark side of Xylos's third moon. Acknowledged, Captain Lin replied. Maintain emissions discipline. No active scanning until we're in position. She had reviewed the mission parameters personally. The Vorn fleet over Xylos consisted of 1 command carrier for battle cruisers and approximately 15 support vessels. Against a conventional enemy, such a force would be formidable. But they weren't facing a conventional enemy. They were facing ghosts. On the Vorn command carrier Inexorable Dominion, Commander Krell was growing irritated. The bridge of his vessel was designed to accommodate his massive armored exoskeleton, the chitinous plating and multiple appendages requiring significantly more space than his subordinates. Status of the Void Protocol, he demanded, his mandibles clicking with impatience. Proceeding as scheduled, Commander, replied his second, Subcommander Vex. Crystal Forest Sectors 1 through 7 have been completely shattered. Thar casualties estimated at 60% of population. Insufficient, Krell clicked. I want the crystalline heart structures destroyed by next cycle. The primary resonance caverns should be our priority targets. Yes, Commander. Ground forces are already advancing on the central sanctuary. Krell's compound eyes shifted to the tactical display. For a moment, he thought he detected anomalous readings, small energy fluctuations near the third moon, but they disappeared almost immediately. Sensor malfunction in Grid 9, he noted. Likely atmospheric discharge or crystal resonance effects, Vex offered. The Cthar are known to amplify their distress signals during attacks. Krell dismissed the concern with a wave of a clawed appendage. The Council has officially recognized our sovereignty over this moon. No species in the galaxy would dare intervene now. His mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among the Vorn. After all, who would risk interstellar censure for these fragile crystal singers? The question hung in the recycled air of the bridge. It would be answered sooner than he expected. The attack began with no warning. One moment, the Vorn fleet maintained its dominating position above Xylos. The next, super-dense tungsten rods were punching through the engines of 3 support vessels. Silent and devastatingly fast, the kinetic projectiles from the Nyx ship's railguns tore through armor, plating designed to withstand energy weapons. Before alarm systems could even activate, precision-guided penetrator torpedoes struck 2 more vessels, their armor-piercing tips designed specifically to breach Vorn hull configurations before detonating internally. The explosions were contained within the ships themselves, minimizing debris that might threaten the surface below. On the Inexorable Dominion, alarms suddenly blared as damage reports flooded in from the fleet. We're under attack, Vex announced unnecessarily, his exoskeleton clicking in agitation. Multiple ships reporting critical damage. Impossible, Krell raged. Identify the attackers. No transponder signatures detected. No energy signatures recognized. Sensors are being actively jammed on multiple frequencies. The tactical display showed chaos. 2 Vorn cruisers were already drifting, their propulsion systems destroyed. 3 support vessels were breaking apart, internal explosions tearing them from within. And still, their sensors couldn't locate the attackers. Deploy Defensive Formation Delta. Krell ordered. All vessels, activate full spectrum scanning. But the Nyx cruisers were already changing position, using the disabled Vorn ships as cover while they lined up their next targets. Their entire attack doctrine was based on silence and precision. No wasted movement, no wasted shots, no wasted opportunities. As the Vorn command carrier tried to coordinate a response, a second wave of kinetic projectiles struck its sensor arrays and communication dishes with surgical precision. Krell was thrown against his command station as the impacts rocked his vessel. Who dares, he snarled. Who would violate Council neutrality sanctions? No answer came through the comms. Only silence and the continued, methodical destruction of his fleet. Far below, on Xylos' surface, the Cthar hiding in the central crystal caverns heard the distant rumble of explosions from above. Elder Lyra looked upward, her crystalline form catching the faint light filtering through the cavern ceiling. Something is happening in orbit, she whispered, the crystal formations around her resonating with her words. But they had little time to wonder about events above. The ground forces of the Vorn were closing in on their final sanctuary, the Sacred Heart, a massive central crystal formation that housed not only their oldest records, but was also believed to be the source of their species' unique resonance abilities. Vorn ground commanders had already surrounded the entrance to the cave system. Their low-frequency sonic disruptors were being calibrated to shatter not just the crystal formations, but the Cathar themselves. And then, like dark meteors, the Styx-class drop pods pierced Xylos' thin atmosphere. Their heat-dampening systems and counter-radar coatings made them nearly impossible to track, their trajectory calculations ensuring they impacted precisely where needed with minimal seismic signatures. The first pod struck 2 kilometers from the central cavern entrances. Their shells cracked open with minimal venting, disgorging armored figures who moved immediately into the cover of the shattered crystal formations. Major Tanaka emerged from his pod, his black armor making him nearly invisible in the shadows of the crystal forest. His helmet's enhanced sensors immediately mapped the terrain and identified thermal signatures of Vorn troops ahead. His neural implant transmitted the data to his team without need for verbal communication. Revenant Alpha Team assembled in seconds, weapons ready. Their loadouts were specialized for this environment. Electromagnetic pulse rifles calibrated to penetrate Vorn armor, molecular blades capable of slipping between their chitinous plates, and disruptor grenades designed to scramble their communal neural networks. Tanaka signaled with a hand gesture, and the team moved forward in perfect silence, using the crystal formations for cover. Through enhanced audio sensors, they could hear the Vorn ground forces preparing their sonic weapons less than a kilometer ahead. Alpha Team in position. Tanaka subvocalized through his neural link to other Revenant teams dropping in different sectors. Engaging primary targets. The first Vorn patrol never saw what hit them. Electromagnetic pulses from precisely aimed rifles dropped 3 armored soldiers before they could react. Tanaka himself closed with the patrol leader, his molecular blade finding the gap between head and thorax plates with practiced precision. The Cathar hiding nearby watched in stunned silence as dark figures moved through their crystal forest with lethal efficiency. Each Revenant operator maintained total emissions discipline. No unnecessary movement, no wasted ammunition, no spoken words. Across Xylos, similar scenes played out as Revenant teams systematically eliminated Vorn ground forces advancing on Cathar sanctuaries. The operations were conducted with cold precision, leaving no survivors to report what they had seen. Squad Commander Drek of the Vorn 3rd Assault Phalanx was the first to realize something was wrong when his forward patrols failed to report in. His exoskeleton tensed as instinctive danger signals coursed through his neural pathways. Establish wide-spectrum communications with all patrols. He ordered his communications specialist. Full status report required. Unable to establish contact, Commander, came the reply. All forward units are silent. Drek's compound eyes narrowed. Deploy scout drones. Full sensor sweep. The small reconnaissance drones shot forward, their sensors scanning the crystal forest. For 30 seconds, they transmitted normal data, and then, one by one, they went dark. We are under attack, Drek announced to his remaining forces. Defensive formation. Activate personal shields and prepare. His words cut off as an electromagnetic pulse struck him directly in the sensory cluster, overloading his neural pathways. Around him, his soldiers fell to similar precision shots. The few who managed to return fire found their energy weapons striking only crystal formations. Their attackers already shifted to new positions. Lieutenant Reza moved through the Vorn defensive line like a shadow, her molecular blade finding vulnerable connection points in their exoskeletons with each strike. The Revenant team had studied Vorn physiology extensively. They knew exactly where to hit to ensure their targets stayed down. Western approach clear, she reported through the neural link. Eastern quadrant secured, came another team leader's report. Tanaka acknowledged as he led his group toward the central cavern entrance. Ahead lay the primary Vorn assault force, led by a larger, more heavily armored commander. They had already set up sonic disruptors aimed at the cavern entrance, preparing to shatter everything inside. Target the disruptors first, Tanaka ordered through the neural net. Then command unit. Precision fire only, we protect what's inside at all costs. The revenants moved into position, their black armor blending with the shadows cast by the crystalline formations. At Tanaka's signal, they opened fire simultaneously. The sonic disruptors exploded in cascading electrical failures as electromagnetic pulses overloaded their control systems. Vorn soldiers spun to face the attack, only to find themselves caught in a perfectly executed crossfire. The Vorn commander, a massive specimen with reinforced exoskeletal plating, roared in rage and fired wildly into the crystal forest. Shards exploded around the revenants as they closed in, moving in coordinated patterns that kept the Vorn forces disoriented and divided. Tanaka circled behind the commander, studying the exoskeleton for weaknesses. This close to the cavern entrance, they couldn't risk using explosives or heavier weapons that might damage the crystal structures. The commander sensed movement and whirled, bringing its weapon to bear on Tanaka. The energy blast struck a crystal formation instead as Tanaka rolled beneath it, his molecular blade finding the joint between leg and thorax. The commander stumbled but didn't fall, swinging a massive armored limb that caught Tanaka in the chest and sent him flying back into a crystal formation. Pain flared across Tanaka's ribs as his armor absorbed most of the impact. He regained his footing just as the commander charged, mandibles clicking furiously. Tanaka waited until the last possible moment before diving aside, using the commander's momentum against it. As the massive Vorn crashed into the crystal formation behind him, Tanaka drove his blade upward through the unarmored connection between thorax and abdomen. The commander thrashed violently before collapsing, its neural system failing as the molecular blade severed critical connections. As the massive body fell, Tanaka noticed movement at the cavern entrance. Kthar were emerging cautiously from hiding. Among them was an elder whose crystalline form seemed more delicate than the others, her structure showing the complex patterns of great age. She moved forward hesitantly, the faint light from her crystalline body pulsing weakly. Tanaka stood motionless, his armor reflecting fragments of that light. Slowly, deliberately, he reached to his belt and drew his combat knife, turning it so the crystal embedded in its hilt caught the light. The elder Kthar, Lyra, stopped, her form suddenly pulsing brighter. The resonance crystal in Tanaka's knife responded, glowing in harmony with her presence. No words were spoken. None were needed. After 50 years, recognition passed between them like a current through the crystal itself. In orbit above Xylos, Admiral Rostova watched the tactical display with the dispassionate eye of a career military strategist. The Nyx fleet had executed its attack pattern perfectly, disabling or destroying 17 Vorn vessels while sustaining only minor damage to 2 of their own ships. The Vorn command carrier Inexorable Dominion was now isolated, its weapons systems partially disabled, its communications arrays destroyed. It drifted in a slowly decaying orbit, surrounded by the silent, angular shapes of Earth's stealth vessels. The carrier is transmitting on all available frequencies, reported Commander Jahan. They're requesting identification and ceasefire. Ignore, Rostova ordered. Prepare next targeting solution. Priority on remaining propulsion systems. Admiral, Jahan said carefully, they're offering surrender terms. Rostova's expression didn't change. There was no surrender offered to the Kthar. No terms. No merci. She touched the small crystal in her pocket. Continue the attack as planned. On the Inexorable Dominion, Commander Krell watched in mounting horror as another barrage of kinetic projectiles tore through his vessel's remaining defensive systems. Internal fires raged through 3 decks, and life support was failing in multiple sections. Still no response to our communications, Subcommander Vex reported, his voice trembling. They're systematically disabling us without even identifying themselves. Krell's compound eyes darted between displays, showing the devastation of his once proud fleet. This is a violation of all interstellar conventions. The Council guaranteed our operation. Sir, Vex said quietly, I've analyzed the attack patterns. The precision kinetic strikes, the targeting of communication systems first, the use of our own disabled ships as sensor blinds. His mandibles clicked nervously. These are Earth tactics, specifically tactics documented from the Corsair War. Impossible, Krell hissed. Earth is bound by the Equinox Treaty. They cannot operate military forces in this sector. Another impact rocked the ship, sending crew members crashing into equipment. Sir, Vex insisted, I believe this is a ghost fleet, a deniable Earth operation. Krell's rage gave way to a cold realization. The Kthar. They sheltered Earth refugees during the Corsair War. His mandibles clicked in bitter understanding. They're repaying a debt. All engines lost, reported a bridge officer. Weapons systems at 12% capacity. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Krell stared at the tactical display, watching as the invisible attackers continued their methodical dismantling of his command. Prepare evacuation protocols, he ordered finally. Transfer all combat data to secure storage for transmission to High Command. In the central crystal caverns of Xylos, the surviving Kthar gathered around the Crystal Heart, a massive, ancient formation that pulsed with internal light and resonated with harmonics that seemed to connect directly to their crystalline bodies. Elder Lyra stood beside Major Tanaka, both of them watching as revenant medics tended to injured Kthar. The black-armored humans moved with unexpected gentleness among the crystal beings, using specialized medical equipment adapted for their unique physiology. 50 years, Lyra said softly, her voice creating gentle ripples of resonance in the surrounding crystals. In the span of a galaxy, merely a moment. In the memory of most species, several lifetimes. Tanaka removed his helmet, revealing the face of a man in his late 50s, lined with experience but with eyes that still held recognition. I was 8 years old when you hid us in these caverns, he said. When you gave me this. He held up his knife, the crystal in its hilt glowing in response to the crystal heart's resonance. A small token, Lyra replied, against the darkness that seemed certain to claim you. It was more than that, Tanaka said. It was a promise, one that Earth never forgot. Around them, the Revenant teams secured the perimeter of the cavern system, establishing defensive positions and clearing Vorn technology. Lieutenant Reza approached, her helmet removed as well. Major, all sectors report secure, she said. Evac transports are standing by. Orbital Command reports the Vorn fleet has been neutralized. Tanaka nodded. Begin evacuation procedures for any Kthar who wish to leave. Priority on injured and young. As Reza departed to relay the orders, Lyra's crystalline form dimmed slightly. You came with warriors and weapons, she observed. Not diplomats or aid workers. We came as we needed to, Tanaka replied simply, to ensure there would still be Kthar alive for the diplomats to speak with afterward. And what will your government say? Your Earth Council? Your treaty obligations? Tanaka's expression hardened slightly. Officially, Earth will express shock at the Vorn aggression and relief at the mysterious intervention that saved the Kthar. They will call for investigations and diplomatic solutions. His hand tightened around the knife hilt. Unofficially, this operation doesn't exist. We don't exist. Lyra's crystalline structure resonated with understanding. Ghosts, she said softly. You came as ghosts to repay a debt no one else remembered. In the command center of the Erebus, Captain Lin received the encrypted transmission from Admiral Rostova. The orders were clear and concise. Complete the mission, leave no identifiable trace, and return to dormant status once the Kthar were secure. All teams report extraction in progress, her tactical officer reported. Vorn command carrier has begun evacuation procedures. Escape pods are being tracked, but not engaged per Admiral's instructions. Lin nodded. The message would be sent back to Vorn High Command through those survivors. not through weapons fire, but through the cold precision of the attack itself. A warning written in the methodical disassembly of their fleet. "Prepare for final phase," she ordered. System-wide broadcast on all frequencies, text only, no identifiers. On Deep Anchor Station, Admiral Rostova stood before the communications array. Her weathered face showed no emotion as she dictated the message that would be transmitted throughout the sector and inevitably to the Galactic Council itself. "This is Admiral Eva Rostova, Earth Defense Fleet," she began, her voice steady. 50 years ago, during the darkness of the Corsair War, the Cathar of Xylos showed kindness when no one else would. They sheltered our abandoned people. She paused briefly. Earth never forgets. The message was short, offering no justification, no threat, no demand. Just a simple statement of fact. A reminder that debts of kindness were currency Earth honored across decades. With a nod to Commander Jahan, she ordered the transmission. Throughout the Xylos system, on every frequency and communication protocol, the message appeared simultaneously. On the remaining Vorn ships, on automated council monitoring stations, on trade vessels passing through neighboring systems. Then, as silently as they had arrived, the Nyx-class vessels began to withdraw. One by one, they vanished from Xylos' orbit, their stealth systems making them ghosts once more. On the surface, the Styx extraction shuttles completed loading the most vulnerable Cathar and lifted off with minimal thrust signatures, disappearing into the thin atmosphere. The Revenant teams were the last to leave. Major Tanaka stood at the entrance to the central cavern, looking back at Elder Lyra one final time. "Will you return?" she asked, her crystalline form casting soft light patterns on the cavern walls. "Not I," Tanaka answered honestly. "But Earth will send others. Openly this time. Aid workers. Reconstruction specialists." He placed his hand against a crystal formation, feeling its subtle resonance. "And perhaps a small contingent of military advisors, to ensure the Vorn understand the consequences of returning." Lyra's form brightened slightly. "And what of you? Child of Earth who remembers." Tanaka's scarred face softened momentarily. "I return to the shadows, Elder, to wait until needed again." He secured his helmet before adding, "But I will carry this memory, as I have carried your crystal, through whatever darkness comes." As the last Revenant transport lifted from Xylos, the survivors of the Cathar began to emerge from their hiding places throughout the crystal forests. They moved cautiously at first, then with increasing confidence as they found only abandoned Vorn equipment and the aftermath of precision strikes. In the central cavern, Elder Lyra stood before the crystal heart, her hands placed against its ancient surface. The massive formation pulsed with renewed strength, sending harmonics through the connected crystal structures across the moon's surface. "They came when no one else would," she said to the gathered Cathar. "Not with words or promises, but with action and memory." The crystal forests of Xylos began to resonate again, slowly rebuilding their harmonic patterns. Fractured formations caught the light of distant stars, reflecting it through their damaged but healing structures. Above, the last of the Earth vessels disappeared from sensors, leaving behind no identifiable traces of their presence. Only the disabled hulks of Vorn warships and the living testimony of the Cathar themselves. In her quarters aboard Deep Anchor Station, Admiral Rostova received the final mission report. All objectives achieved. Minimal Earth casualties. The Cathar preservation rate exceeded projections. The Chimera Protocol would once again go dormant, its assets dispersed and hidden throughout Earth's secret defense network, waiting for the next time an old debt required payment. She removed the small crystal from her pocket, her parents' keepsake, and placed it on her desk where it caught the light. For a moment, it seemed to pulse with a faint internal glow, resonating with something distant but connected. "It is done," she murmured to the memory of her parents. "The debt is paid." But even as she spoke the words, she knew it wasn't merely about debt. It was about something the calculating, pragmatic species of the galaxy consistently underestimated about humans: their capacity to remember kindness across generations. Their willingness to return, without warning and without mercy, to protect those who had once sheltered them. On Xylos, the crystal forest began to heal. The songs of the Cthar, tentative at first, started to resonate once more through the ancient formations. They looked to the stars with new understanding. Not all debts were forgotten. Not all cries went unheard. They thought no one would come. They had been wrong. The warriors of Earth had fallen from the sky, silent and relentless, carrying a 50-year-old memory of kindness like a blade unsheathed in darkness. And in that memory lay the most powerful force in the galaxy, one that no treaty could bind, no council could sanction, and no enemy could predict: humanity's refusal to forget. As Elder Lyra watched the distant stars where Earth lay beyond her sight, she sent a silent resonance through the crystal heart. Not a call for help this time, but a harmonic of gratitude that would echo through the crystal structures for generations to come. A reminder to all Cthar that would follow. In the cold accounting of the galaxy, kindness was never wasted. For some species, one species in particular, remembered. And when called upon by that memory, they would come again.